Randomized controlled trials have long been the gold standard in clinical evidence, rigorous, internally valid, and designed to eliminate bias through randomization. But they come with serious limitations. They're expensive, slow, and often exclude patients with comorbidities, older adults, or those on multiple medications. As a result, the populations enrolled in trials rarely reflect the real-world diversity of patients who will eventually use the treatments. Meanwhile, real-world data, electronic health records, insurance claims, wearable device streams, patient registries, are being recognized not as second-class evidence, but as a powerful complement. They capture how treatments actually work in everyday practice, in diverse populations with polypharmacy and over long time horizons. But here's the catch. Real-world data alone can't prove causality. It's riddled with confounding, selection bias, and measurement error. That's where artificial intelligence and machine learning come in, not as replacements for traditional statistics, but as tools that, when used with rigor, can unlock new levels of insight. The future of evidence generation isn't about choosing between RCTs and RWD, or between statistics and AI. It's about integrating them, principled, transparent, and causal. Let's walk through how this integration works. Hash the evidence continuum, from trials to real-world insights. Think of clinical evidence not as a binary choice, but as a spectrum. At one end, traditional RCTs with high internal validity but limited generalizability. At the other, observational studies using real-world data, offering broad external validity but weaker causal inference. Between them lies a growing space of hybrid designs, pragmatic trials that embed randomization into routine care, adaptive trials that adjust in real time, and external control studies where real-world data serves as a comparator. And now, regulators are taking notice. Between 2019 and 2021, real-world evidence contributed to 31% of FDA approvals for new drugs and biologics. In rare disease therapies alone, RWE played a key role in 5 FDA approvals from 2020 to 2022, each meeting the standard of substantial evidence of effectiveness. The European Medicines Agency, the UK's MHRA, Japan's PMDA, and China's NMPA have all launched initiatives to incorporate RWD into regulatory decision-making. This isn't a trend. It's a transformation. Why AI ML matters for real-world evidence. The challenge with real-world data. It's big, really big. Vast in volume, fast-moving in velocity, diverse in variety, and sometimes unreliable in veracity. Traditional statistical methods struggle with high-dimensional, unstructured data like medical notes, imaging, or continuous sensor streams. That's where AI and machine learning shine. They can identify patterns across millions of patient records, detect subtle signals in unstructured text, and model complex nonlinear relationships. But here's the critical point. AI ML isn't magic. It needs guardrails. That's why regulatory agencies like the FDA and EMA are developing guidance on AI in drug development, on causal inference, on transparency. 3 key applications are emerging. 1. Causal AI ML. Methods like transportability analysis allow us to generalize RCT findings to broader populations. For example, a lung cancer trial might enroll only younger, healthier patients. But using causal inference, we can estimate treatment effects in older, sicker populations using real-world data. Target trial emulation lets us simulate a randomized trial using observational data, perfect for extending follow-up to detect long-term safety signals. And tools like doubly robust estimators, causal forests, and principal stratification help us estimate heterogeneous treatment effects, where some patients benefit more than others, while accounting for unmeasured confounders. 2. Agentic AI. This isn't just passive prediction. Agentic AI acts as an autonomous agent, perceiving data, reasoning about context, and adapting actions in real time. Imagine an AI that dynamically optimizes trial recruitment, identifies underrepresented groups, or predicts patient dropout to adjust follow-up schedules. In decentralized trials, agentic systems have already piloted site selection and participant engagement, improving efficiency and inclusivity. But with autonomy comes risk. These systems must be transparent, auditable, and fair. We need governance frameworks to ensure accountability. 3. Generative AI. This is where things get revolutionary. Generative models, like GANs or diffusion models, can create synthetic patients, simulate disease trajectories, and generate counterfactual scenarios without exposing real patients to risk. In rare diseases or pediatric populations, where data is scarce, synthetic data can augment small trials, enabling more robust analysis. Even more powerful, digital twins, virtual replicas of individual patients. These models simulate disease progression and treatment response, acting as virtual control arms. Platforms like RCOVA have already been used in Alzheimer's and ALS trials, reducing control arm sizes by up to 50% while maintaining statistical power. The EMA has positively reviewed digital twin approaches. The FDA has qualified the RCOVA methodology. This isn't science fiction, it's regulatory reality. Why real-world data matters for AI ML. AI models don't learn from thin air. They learn from data, and real-world data is the richest, most diverse training ground available. RWD offers 3 critical advantages. 1. Real-world complexity. Foundation models trained on EHRs, claims, wearables, and patient-reported outcomes learn from a broad spectrum of demographics, comorbidities, care settings, and geographic regions. This reduces the risk of bias from narrow trial cohorts. 2. Continuous learning. Unlike static RCTs, RWD is longitudinal. It captures disease trajectories over years, allowing AI to model treatment responses, relapse patterns, and long-term outcomes. 3. Safety monitoring at scale. Drug safety remains a major bottleneck. RCTs are great for detecting common side effects, but miss rare or long latency events. RWD enables real-time surveillance of adverse events, off-label use, and unexpected interactions across millions of patients. But there's a catch. Generative AI models can only be as good as the data they're trained on. If the underlying RWD is biased or low quality, the synthetic data will reflect that. And privacy is paramount. That's why we need privacy-preserving analytics, federated learning, differential privacy, and synthetic data generation. Federated learning allows multiple institutions to train a model without sharing raw data. Each site updates a central model using local data, keeping patient information secure. Combined with generative AI, this creates a dual-layer privacy architecture. Learn from distributed data, generate anonymized data for analysis, never expose sensitive information. # the Causal Roadmap, a framework for trust. So how do we integrate all this without sacrificing rigor? We need a causal roadmap, a structured, transparent framework that makes assumptions explicit, clarifies trade-offs, and ensures validity. Here's how it works. Step 1, define the causal estimand. What question are you trying to answer? The average treatment effect in a target population. The effect in a subgroup defined by biomarkers. Be specific. Step 2, align data sources and articulate assumptions. Where does your data come from? Are there selection biases? Unmeasured confounders? Temporal misalignment? Use causal diagrams, directed acyclic graphs, DAG, to map out relationships and identify threats to validity. Step 3, select appropriate estimation methods. Choose tools that match your assumptions. Doubly robust estimators like AIPW or TMLE combine flexible machine learning models for nuisance parameters with statistical theory to ensure valid inference, even if one model is misspecified. For digital twins or hybrid trials, methods like double machine learning, sample splitting, or adaptive weighting allow AI to enhance precision while preserving statistical validity. Step 4, assess robustness. Conduct sensitivity analyses. How would your results change if key assumptions were violated? Or run a small prospective trial to validate causal assumptions, using RWD to inform randomization probabilities, and test whether the RWE conclusion holds. This roadmap turns integration from an ad hoc exercise into a disciplined, reproducible science. # key applications, where integration is already changing practice. Let's look at 4 transformative use cases. 1. Transporting RCT results to broader populations. A lung cancer trial shows a survival benefit, but only in younger, healthier patients. Using causal transportability methods, we can generalize those findings to older, sicker patients using data from the National Cancer Database. This helps clinicians, payers, and regulators understand real-world impact. 2. AI-assisted RCT analysis. Instead of relying only on baseline covariates, we can use digital twin predictions as a super covariate in ANCOVA models. These predictions improve efficiency, reduce sample size, and boost precision, without compromising randomization. The EMA and FDA have already reviewed and qualified this approach. It's not theoretical, it's in use. 3. Hybrid controlled trials. Replacing the control arm entirely with AI-generated comparators is risky. But hybrid designs, keeping a small randomized control arm while borrowing information from digital twins or external controls, offer a safer path. Bayesian methods adaptively downweight external data when discrepancies arise. Frequentist approaches use bias function modeling or selective borrowing to integrate only comparable data. In rare disease trials, Fisher's randomization test provides a lightweight, assumption-free safeguard. 4. Extending short-term RCTs with long-term RWD. Many trials stop at intermediate endpoints, but real-world registries can extend follow-up, tracking recurrence, late toxicities, adherence, and long-term survival. In immuno-oncology, for example, RCTs show early efficacy, but long-term real-world data reveals relapse patterns and immune-related adverse events. By combining short-term trial data with long-term RWD using data fusion and surrogate endpoint validation, we can generate evidence on durability, critical for health technology assessments and reimbursement decisions. # the path forward, where we need to go. We're not done. There are still challenges and opportunities. Uncertainty quantification. When AI models predict outcomes, how confident can we be? Conformal prediction offers a distribution-free way to construct valid, finite sample confidence intervals, even for black box models. It's especially powerful for individualized treatment effects, where a wrong recommendation could harm a patient. Small sample inference. In rare diseases or early-phase trials, data is scarce. Traditional asymptotic methods fail. We need randomization-based inference, conformal methods, and adaptive borrowing strategies that work in small samples, while maintaining validity. Privacy and interoperability. Federated learning and synthetic data are promising, but we need secure, scalable platforms. Regulatory clarity is essential, so that federated analyses can be submitted to the FDA, EMA, or NICE. Prospective validation of causal assumptions. When RWE suggests a treatment works, how do we test that? Run a small randomized validation study, using RWD to inform randomization probabilities. This hybrid strategy tests the credibility of real-world findings without the cost of a full trial. And above all, transparency, reproducibility, and open science. Use open-source software. Share code and data with privacy safeguards. Build trust. Conclusion, the future is integrative. The next generation of evidence isn't about RCTs versus RWD. It's not about statistics versus AI. It's about integration, principled, causal, and transparent. By combining the internal validity of RCTs, the external relevance of RWD, the predictive power of AI/ML, and the inferential rigor of statistics, we can generate evidence that is robust, validated across data sources, transparent with clear assumptions and methods, policy relevant, informing regulatory decisions, reimbursement, and clinical practice, patient-centered, reflecting real-world diversity and long-term outcomes. This is not a distant future. It's happening now, on trial designs, in regulatory submissions, in drug approvals. The ultimate goal: to deliver evidence that isn't just statistically sound, but clinically meaningful, ethically responsible, and directly tied to patient outcomes. We're not just building better models. We're building better medicine.